Today we're going to talk about the introduction to printmaking. So to begin, we need to ask ourselves, what is printmaking? And printmaking is a form of art that involves transferring ink to paper. This process allows for multiple copies of the same artwork, which is pretty cool. Each individual copy then is considered to be a print or an impression, whereas the entire set of prints is called an edition. Printmaking originated in China around 105 CE. It was also during the Gothic and Renaissance periods of art where relief printing became very popular in Europe. Woodcut, which is a type of relief print, is the earliest printmaking technique. Woodcuts of images on paper developed around 1400 in Europe and slightly later in Japan. These are the two areas where woodcut has been most extensively used purely as a process for making images without text. Artists most known for printmaking include Durer, Kirchner, and Hokusai. So how are prints made then? Prints are made from what is called a matrix, or in other words, a mat, which can be made from many different materials. Prints are then made by transferring the ink from the matrix to the paper or other material. So there are three basic categories for printmaking. There's the relief, the intaglio, and the stencil. Relief printmaking is where ink is applied to the surface of the matrix and then rubbed onto a paper or other material. This is what we will be using within our class. Intaglio is where you're applying ink beneath the surface of the matrix. And lastly, we have stenciling, which is pressing ink through a prepared screen to create a positive versus negative space design. This is mostly where we'll see designs that are presented on t-shirts. So what are we going to be doing in class? Well, first we're going to practice creating prints, and we will be working with insulation board to carve into. And I choose insulation board because it's a little bit cheaper and the surface is very easy to work with and manipulate. And it's just a great material to use for practicing relief printing. Think of it as creating a big stamp. We will be working with a variety of painted surfaces to get an addition of 5 successful prints. So to begin with, your first step is going to be to create a design. This can be a composition found within a magazine or one that you've created on your own. You will need to sketch out the same size as your insulation board block, so that way it's easy to transfer. And once your sketch has been approved, you're then going to place your paper on top of your insulation board and lightly trace over the lines. This will create an impression then onto your insulation board and will be easy to distinguish your lines for carving. So once your drawing has been transferred, begin carving out the negative space or the background around your design. Keep in mind that you should not carve completely through the insulation board, but enough to create an indentation. The raised areas then, or the positive space, will be the areas that will print. Also go in and carve away at any detailing that you would like to add. The more that you carve away, the more interesting your piece will become. So once your design has been successfully carved away, you can then begin adding inks to the surface of your board to transfer to your paper or other material. This next video will show a very basic sneak peek about the steps that we will be taking. So in this tutorial here, as she gets started, she has already created her ink, the color that she wanted for her ink, and she's carved out her design. So then she's going to take her brayer tool and press it along the entire insulation board piece. And you'll notice that any of the areas that were carved away, they're not going to be filled in with ink, and therefore they're not going to be showing up on the initial paper. So once the surface has been completely filled with the ink, you're then going to take the paper and place your paper, try to center it as best as you can onto the insulation board. The paper that's cut will be a little bit bigger than your actual insulation board piece in order to create a border around it. So then as she lightly presses this onto the board, you want to make sure that there's no bubbles. So you're going to press down pretty hard to make sure that it's flat around all areas. You'll probably want to go through a couple times just to ensure this. And then once you're sure that the entire area has been smooth and there's no bubbles whatsoever that are showing through, you're then going to go through and very carefully you're going to lift the paper. And there you have it. And so you can continue doing this as many times as you want with different colors. You can paint the surface paper first to get a variety of different additions with your prints. If you've liked what you've seen, please take a minute to subscribe to my page for updates on new art education videos.